Okay guys, how you doing? So if you're watching this video right now, you've either seen Thor the Dark World and you want to hear my full complete thoughts on it, or, you've stumbled into this review by accident, in which case you're like, oh my god, I wanted to see a review without spoilers. Don't get worried, guys. I got a non-spoiler review down below and you can check that out. Or you're somebody who doesn't care about spoilers, in which case, cool, welcome. So, let's get started with my spoiler review of Thor the Dark World. So, Thor the Dark World opens with this backstory about the Ether, and it's a really cool backstory. It kind of reminded me of the backstory from the first Thor, how you saw the first, opening scene of the movie was, the backstory about the Frost Giants and their troops with Odin and so forth. Which, speaking of the Frost Giants, is really cool seeing that Frost Giant at the end of the movie when Thor and Malekith are fighting in Jotunheim. That was really cool. But anyways, it just the whole beginning of the movie kind of reminded me of that, and it was just cool seeing Odin's father and them talking about the Ether, and Odin's father all like, "Oh, this Ether is dangerous, so we must hide it somewhere." And I really liked that opening. It was a really cool opening. And so after that cool opening, you get to Loki's trial, and I really like the scene because I like seeing how where Loki is at the beginning of the movie, that he's still trying to appeal to Odin. He's trying to appeal to his dad. He's all saying to him, "Oh, I took over. I want to take over Earth because I want to show Earth that we are above them. We're gods." And Odin says, "Oh, we're not gods. We live and we die just like Earthlings and so forth." And I like that, and I like how he says, "I would have sent you to death had it not been for your mother." So he decides that because his mom appealed to him, that he's just going to imprison Loki for all eternity, and that really does set up the whole idea, the big sort of trigger to the movie that we'll get to later. But anyway, so you get to the Battle of Vanaheim, and Vanaheim is just trashed. It's burning, and all of a sudden Thor shows up. I love his entrance in the movie. He just shows up. He just shows up through the Bifrost Bridge. He's taking out monsters and so forth. And Sif says everything's under control, and Thor says, "Then why is everything on fire?" And he just starts taking everybody out. He starts hitting people with his hammer, using the lightning and so forth. And I'm just like, it's awesome, man. It's awesome. It was so cool, man. And then after that, you see the Asgardian culture, which is great. You see the way the Asgardians celebrate. You see just the way they interact with each other and so forth, and it's really cool. It's really cool. I mean, I hope I see more of that on the deleted scenes section, because I have a feeling some Asgard stuff got cut out. It's just my theory. But after that, you get to some of the Earth stuff. You get to find out what happened to Jane and Eric Selvig and Kat Dennings and so forth. And I like the fact that Eric Selvig is crazy. I like the fact that he went nuts after the Avengers, because Loki messed with his mind. He was under his mind control, so obviously that does damage to you. You know what I mean? And that was really cool. That was really funny to see those events sort of affect him. And I really did, and I really did like the whole idea of Natalie Portman dating that one dude from Bridesmaids. That storyline was pretty funny. I'll admit that. But basically, Natalie Portman and Kat Dennings, they get this call of basically that this building has a portal, or a portal into different realms and so forth. And so Natalie Portman accidentally goes inside of it, and what she finds is the Ether, and she accidentally absorbs the Ether. And all of a sudden, Thor and Heimdall, can't see her, because Heimdall watches Jane Foster, and he just tells, "Oh, she's doing this," and Thor's just being updated, but Heimdall says, "Oh, I can't see her." So Thor lands on Earth to find out what's wrong with her, and as he's telling Jane, "Oh, I left you so I could protect the Earth and so forth." Basically, what happens is that Jane attacks people, accidentally without this ether. So Thor takes Jane all the way back to Asgard to have the doctors in Asgard study her. And of course, Odin's not cool with it. He's like, "Oh, take her back to Earth. Have the doctors on Earth look at her." But soon he finds out she's inherited the ether, so he's like, she should stay here, and we'll deal with something. And basically, you see a bunch of bonding scenes. You see scenes of like Jane Foster bonding with Thor's mom a lot, and you see Thor showing Jane like the culture of Asgard, and Jane's like mesmerized by the Asgardian culture and so forth, and it's really cool. But then all of a sudden, Malekith and the Dark Elves they find out the ether is on Asgard because the ether has sort of awakened them. So they go to Asgard and they start wrecking things, they start blowing things up and so forth. And Thor's all taking a lot of the Dark Elves out, along with Fandral, who's a recast. I forgot to mention that in my spoiler review, my non-spoiler review, that Fandral is a recast because the original actor had to do Once Upon a Time, so they recast him with Chuck Bartowski or Zachary Levi, and I didn't really mind that. In fact, I was just like whatever. It wasn't because his performance was kind of the same as Josh Dallas's was in the first Thor, so I basically didn't mind it at all. But anyway, so him and Fandral and Volstagg, they're taking all the Dark Elves out, and Thor realizes that Malekith is going after Jane and his mother, so he's racing to find he's racing to get to them, and Malekith finds Jane and Frigga there, Thor's mom, and all of a sudden he's like, "Oh, give me the ether," and he says that to Jane Foster, and then it turns out that Jane Foster is actually an illusion, that the real Jane Foster is hiding out somewhere we don't know. So Frigga just starts fighting and trying to take these Dark Elves out, and then all of a sudden, bam! Malekith kills Frigga. She's dead. And of course, Thor's angry, he's filled with revenge. Odin's sad, and Loki finds that out in his prison. He's tearing his prison cell up. It's sad, and you even get to see like an Asgardian funeral. It's all tragic. And basically Thor just says, "Oh, there's only one person that knows where these dark elves are at," and he says, and that's Loki, because basically what why he feels like Loki's a perfect one, because somehow they were able to get through Asgard, and he knows that Loki knows the secret passageways to Asgard, so he's like, Loki's the perfect one to show us where where they're at. So that's basically what it is. And of course Loki's all taunting Thor. He's like, "Oh, did you come back to mock me?" and so forth, and in his prison cell. And at first, it looks like nothing's affected him, and then all of a sudden Thor just says, "Loki, no more illusions." And so Loki takes the illusion off, and the whole place is trash. Loki's lost his shoes. Dude looks like a goth rocker on heroin. Everything's just messed up. So Loki agrees to help Thor out, and this is by far one of the best scenes of all the Marvel movies. It's the scene where Thor and Loki are escaping are trying to get through Asgard before they can get to the ship, and Loki is taking these different shapes to make himself get through. Look like he can get through. Sorry about that. It's late, by the way. So he looks like an Asgardian soldier at first. Then he turns Thor into Sif, and then all of a sudden Loki turns himself into Captain America. That's right, Chris Evans himself in the flesh, and it's hilarious. I everyone in my theater, including myself, just couldn't stop laughing, and I always love seeing these Avengers cameos in these movies and so forth. I mean, I kind of felt the whole Bruce Banner cameo at the end of Iron Man 3 was funny, but it was kind of cheap, because I was like, oh, why don't these Avengers just help him out and so forth? And I mean, Thor makes sense because they're on Asgard, they're in different worlds, so it's impossible for other Avengers to come and help him. But it was still really funny to see to see Chris Evans there as Captain America, being impersonated by Loki, and it was just done. It was done perfectly, man. It was done great. Thor and Loki get on one of Malekith's ships, and they escape through Asgard, and Loki's taunting Thor, kind of like how he's supposed to be in the comics, and they get to the Dark World, and they meet Malekith there, and Thor turns to Loki and says, "Oh, is this plan going to work?" And so they approach Malekith, and all of a sudden, Loki stabs Thor, throws Jane to Malekith, and chops Thor's hand off. And that moment I was like, holy shit, that's crazy. I was shocked, man. And, but what I was more shocked about was the fact that Thor getting stabbed and his hand chopped off was all an illusion. And it was basically a distraction so for Malekith to take the ether away from Jane so that Thor could destroy the ether. And he tries to destroy the ether with his lightning, but it doesn't work, and Malekith inherits the ether. So all of a sudden there's this big battle between Thor, Loki, and the rest of the Dark Elves, and it's awesome. And then all of a sudden, Curse, Malekith's right-hand man, comes and he starts beating Thor up. Like he's just wailing on him, and it's just like, it's sad. I was just like, holy shit, man, you know what I mean? And then all of a sudden, what happens is Loki comes and he kills Curse, but then all of a sudden, Curse kills Loki. And I was just like, what? They just killed Loki? You know what I mean? I mean, it's emotional, man. And I was just like, holy shit, they killed Loki. But later on, it turns out it was all an illusion. Loki faked his death. And so what happens is Thor and Jane Foster, they go into this cave in the Dark World. Loki morphs into an Asgardian soldier, and he goes up to Odin and says to him, "Oh, Thor and Jane aren't found, but we did find a body, and it's Loki." And of course, Odin's sad, and Loki has like a smirk on his face. Loki in disguise has a smirk on his face. So what happens is Thor and Jane are walking through this cave. All of a sudden, Jane finds her stuff in there. She finds her car key. She finds a bunch of shoes there, that was a great joke. Thor's all like, "Why are there a bunch of shoes in here?" And all of a sudden, they find out that portal is connected to the portal that Jane was in when she inherited the ether. So they go through that portal, and they return to London. And all of a sudden, they meet Eric Selvig. They meet Eric Selvig there. They meet Kat Dennings, and they meet her intern and so forth. And they realize that it's all connected to this part in London called Greenwich. So they travel all the way to Greenwich, and the next morning, by the way, and all of a sudden, like the next morning, Malekith is there, and he and Thor are there. They duke it out in this awesome battle, and they're going through different portals. They go through Jotunheim. They go through the Dark World. It's awesome, and I'm just geeking out the whole time because it's so cool. And they've got to stop. They got to stop the portals from converging each other or something like that. You see a lot of hilarious scenes. Like there's this scene with Thor who gets on a train to get to Greenwich. It's hilarious. I couldn't stop laughing. Then all of a sudden he gets to Malekith, and Malekith says, "It can't be stopped." And Thor just says, "But you can." And so he just throws these poles and sends Malekith back to the Dark World. But there's a thing of Malekith's big, converger, his ship or whatever. So Selvig sends that to the Dark World. The converger, then lands on Malekith and kills him. Thor and Jane sort of, kiss one last time, and Kat Dennings and that one intern do, which I gotta admit, that intern and the whole Kat Dennings thing really didn't need to be in the movie, but it ended anyways. And so basically what happens is Thor returns to Asgard, and Odin says to Thor, "Oh, you have committed the actions of a king." And he says, "You're ready to become a king." And Thor says, "I don't want to be a king," because he says the sacrifice the sacrifice, the hardship and the brutality and all of it changes you. It takes a toll on you. He even says at one point Loki would have been more suited to be king than me. And he says, I wish to go back to Earth and be with Jane. And of course Owen just allows him. He says, you are still worthy. Go, my son. And Thor says, thank you. And at first you're like, oh, it's a nice happy ending, I see. But then it turns out that Odin is being impersonated by Loki. So now Loki's in charge of Asgard now, which has me thinking. I've seen the movie twice now. It has me thinking, what happened to Odin? What happened to Odin between that scene where Loki, as a Asgardian soldier, told him that he was dead, and that scene where it turns out that Loki's Odin? What happened between those scenes? Did Loki kill Odin? Did he put him in prison? Did he send him to a different, realm? I don't know. I don't know. I mean, we don't know yet. I mean, I guess that's going to be the direction for Thor 3, that Thor is going to have to find Odin. He's going to, discover that Loki is Odin and so forth. So, end credits right there. That's the way the movie ends. And this is a Marvel movie after all. And thing with Marvel movies is that they always have end credit scenes, and just like the Avengers, we got 2 end credit scenes, one in the middle and one in the end. So let's talk about that. Now, I'm going to talk about the sort of least talked about end credit scene, and that is the very, very end one where Thor goes back to Earth. He makes out with Jane, and all of a sudden you see that frost giant chasing some birds, which it's hilarious. It got a huge laugh from everyone. And that scene, I guess, was to explain that Thor will be on Earth, and it'll be easy for the Avengers to assemble now. Because in the first this is the first Avengers. Sorry about that. In the first Avengers, Thor had to get to Earth using all the dark magic that Odin could summon to get him home, and now it won't be that hard. Now S.H.I.E.L.D. can just find him in London or wherever he and Jane Foster are going to be. So there's that. But now we get to the mid-credit scene. This is the one I geeked out the most, man. It's this end credit scene where you see Sif and Volstagg. They've got the ether with them, and they're walking through like this sort of lair. You don't know what it is yet, but pretty soon this alien chick says, "I present to you the Collector," and it's Benicio del Toro as the Collector. And first of all, Del Toro looks awesome as the Collector. I mean, even though he's got the David Bowie haircut, kind of like that, he still looks awesome. Like he's got the white hair. He's got sort of the Collector costume and so forth. It's awesome. And they're there to give the Collector the ether, and the Collector just says, "Well, why won't you keep it safe in your vault?" He says, "Well, the Tesseract back in Asgard, it's not wise to have 2 Infinity Stones there," which has confirmed 2 things. Which has confirmed one thing, that the Tesseract and the Ether are the Infinity Stones. I don't know what they are. I know that Kevin Feige has said, "Oh, the Tesseract is space," which has me thinking, is the Ether reality? Is it power? What is it? What is it? I mean, we don't know yet. You know what I mean? So basically, what happens is they give the Collector the ether, and the Collector says, "Oh, you can trust me with it. It will be safe here in my collection." And Sif says, "See that it is." And so they leave the Collector's place, and the Collector just turns to his assistant and says, "1 down, 5 to go," and bam, it's right there. And I was just going, holy shit, it's awesome, because it's a tease to Guardians of the Galaxy, of course, but the thing that makes it much more awesome is the whole 1 down, 5 to go thing, which means that the Collector is gathering the gems for the Infinity Gauntlet, and he's going to give the gauntlet to Thanos with the Infinity Gems, and Thanos will use that to take out the Avengers, which, I mean, everyone was all questioning when Ultron was announced as the bad guy for Avengers 2. Oh, why did they use Thanos for Avengers 2? Like, they teased at the end of the Avengers 1. And it was because, and I was predicting it was because of this. It was because of the fact that Thanos needed to get the gems before, you make him the villain. Because the Infinity Gauntlet is already in the is already in the weapons vault in Thor. So all you need to do is just get the gems and put that with the gauntlet together, and there's that. So obviously there's time between Thor: The Dark World and Avengers 3 for Thanos to get the gems and the gauntlet. That's the plan basically, and I'm so happy, man. It's awesome. I sound like a geek now, man. You know what I mean? But yeah, that's my full thoughts on Thor: The Dark World. I really loved it. I think it's the best sort of solo Avenger movie out there, and I can't wait to see what Phase 2 is going to bring us next, because in April we got Captain America: The Winter Soldier. Which I'm really looking forward to that. In fact, April isn't even that long. It's only 6 months away. It's crazy. You know what I mean? It's gonna go by fast. But yeah, that's my full thoughts on Thor: The Dark World. So what'd you think about Thor: The Dark World, overall? Did you like it more than the first Thor? Do you think it was weaker than the first Thor? Where would you rank in terms of Marvel's, Avenger moves and so forth? So yeah, that's my take on Thor: The Dark World. My spoiler video. It's my first spoiler video, so like, comment, share, whatever.